Jesus, draw me ever nearer as I labor through the storm.
start today with something I'm sure several of you are familiar with. I'm going to tell some quick stories about this, but if you have siblings, you're going to automatically relate to some of the things I'm going to say. My wife and I actually grew up in very different households. She grew up in a household full of girls. She has 2 sisters, and that's three girls. So full of girls, and they have their, I guess, girlfriend. I don't know. I grew up in a household of boys. I don't know what that even looks like. But we grew up in a household full of boys. And let me tell you something. It was an adventure. My parents, not only did they start having identical twins right off the bat, which created a lot of stories in and of itself, but they had the nerve 4 years later to have another baby boy. I say the nerve because my younger brother CJ, it's a miracle that he's still alive today, growing up with twin boys as older brothers. I don't know how he made it, but he did. We did terrible things to one another. That's a mission. If you grew up with brothers, you can relate to that. One of the first things I remember is when CJ started eating solid foods and started to have somewhat of a conversation, mine. We were talking one day, and I was encouraging him that it was okay and perfectly normal for humans to eat the same food as the dogs. The other time I remember is we grew up in a 2-story old farmhouse, and between the 2 stories outside was the front porch roof. And my brother and I, when we were about 9 or 10, my twin brother, we would climb up onto the front porch and jump from there. Well, it wasn't super tall, but tall enough that it was, a rush, I guess. But we survived and we were okay. It was when we were trying to get our kindergartner brother to join us on that Mom and Dad had an issue with that. As CJ's climbing up onto the front porch, my mom comes upstairs, witnesses what's going on, grabs him, pulls him back in, and she didn't have to ask where he got the idea. She knew exactly where he got the idea, and she took us in. My parents were very much believed in spanking. If you have offense to that, take it up with them. I'll give you your number after service. Mom took us in and gave us a spanking we wouldn't soon forget. And then says the famous words that I've heard other people say, "Wait till your father gets home." I was so confused because I thought we already had our punishment. So Dad came home late, woke us up, got us out of bed, reserved our time with him, went back to bed, and I wish I could say that ended a lot of the problems that we had between one another, but it sure didn't. Mom and Dad were very much, did not want to promote violence. Well, you have 3 boys at home, you don't have a choice. But they try not to promote violence. So they didn't buy us the toy guns or swords or anything like that, which is perfectly fine with us because my uncle gave us baseball bats and they worked just as well. I quickly discovered why he wasn't their favorite relative. Siblings are a lot of fun. And we've had our fair share of disagreements and arguments, but for the most part I can step back and say it was a joy growing up with a house full of boys. And Mom and Dad did have a girl later on, and she's now, dating somebody seriously, so please pray for him as he deals with older brothers. But I want to start with the original brother rivalry. Brother rivalry. There you go. Cain and Abel, the first generation of children, and they started fighting right off the bat. And I think as we take a look at Cain and Abel, we're going to see, we're going to learn so much on who we are and who we are as humans. How Cain and Abel both reacted to one another and both reacted to God teaches us a lot about who we are. What God expects from us, what oftentimes we're guilty of giving Him. And it also teaches us a lot about God, who God is and what God was able to do through guys such as Abel and Cain and through this treachery, tragedy situation, God was still ultimately glorified. I want to start with this. God expects something from you. You can choose to accept that or not. It doesn't make a difference. God expects something from you. And knowing what He expects from you is a challenge. Because we're not sitting down physically having a cup of coffee with God and asking the audible questions. Sometimes that's quite a bit of a challenge. But I want you to know that He expects something from you. And one of the things that God expects from all of us is responsibility. And I'm going to tell you what are some of the things He's going to be responsible for through Adam and Eve. Let's start with Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, as we took off last week, and the rest of this month will be in the book of Genesis, both during the sermon time on Sundays and during our Wednesday night class, starting at 7 o'clock. Just so you also know, downstairs during the children's church, there too are going to focus on the same lessons that you're going to hear upstairs. And on Wednesday nights, they're going to study the same lesson that the adults are learning from on Wednesday nights as well. So we're going to keep that cohesiveness. So this month we're going to focus on Genesis. Next month we're going to focus on the book of Luke. But last week we kind of talked about Adam and Eve and when sin came in. And that started a new realm of what God expected from Adam and Eve. No longer was everything provided for Adam and Eve as it was in the Garden of Eden, where their daily talks were refreshing and delightful. Now they had to struggle against the elements in order to provide food, clothing, and shelter for themselves and their family. But God called them to be responsible. And each one had their own responsibility. And able to provide for the family, they each had to fulfill their gifts and needs. And one of the needs that the family had is they had need of nutrition. Part of that nutrition was crops. Cain was given the ability to grow. And he was a very gifted farmer. As he was given the ability to grow crops and to take care of a garden, he was able to provide for his family. Now Abel, on the other hand, was not gifted in growing crops. He was gifted in livestock. And he was the one responsible for caring for the livestock. As we take a look at Genesis, second part of verse 2 through verse 5, it says this, Now Abel became a shepherd of the flock, but Cain worked the ground. In the course of time, Cain presented some of the land's produce as an offering to the Lord. And Abel also presented an offering, some of the firstborn of his flock and the fatted portions. The Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but did not have regard for Cain and his offering. Cain was furious and looked despondent. We have responsibilities just like Cain and Abel did. We are responsible to take care of ourselves and our family. I wish I could say that today's culture, today's society promotes that. Promotes being responsible for your parents, but as I take a look at today's social media, the media today, it's more taking care of yourself, and if you have time for your family, you try to fit it in. That's not biblical. What's biblical is you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility for yourself and your family. Cain and Abel had families to take care of, and they took care of themselves and one another. They knew they had a responsibility, and they were willing to do it. And God has this appreciation with Adam and Eve and the first couple as well as the first family. Adam and Eve messed up. Hey, look, we all mess up. And there are consequences to their sin, to their mess up. And their consequence was the fact that they were no longer in the Garden of Eden. They had to work for their food and for their livelihood. But God didn't stop loving them. He blessed them with children. He loved them for who they were. And as they reached out to Him, He reached back. Adam and Eve, after their sin, after their mess up, was still faithful to God after their sin. They worked hard and accepted the new life. But God also recognized the innocent. He knew that Adam and Eve's children were not guilty of Adam and Eve's sin, so He didn't put that against them. Now, did they grow up in the Garden of Eden? No. But that was because of Adam and Eve's sin. You see, the first thing we learn about sin in this passage is the fact that sin affects more than you. It affects those around you. And in this case, the destination of where they lived, where they would grow up, and where they would have their livelihood was not in the Garden of Eden because of the consequence of Adam and Eve's mess up. But God recognizes that and gives them a fresh start, gives them an opportunity. And He appreciates and had this loving relationship with Adam and Eve. That carries on to their children. And He appreciates Abel and Abel's gift. Now, what do we know about Abel? Not a whole lot. He was the second child born, according to record. And he was the first one to fully obey God. Cain was the first child, and they were among the first generation of children. Cain and Abel grew up together. We're not told how many children Adam and Eve had. We do know they had other sons and daughters. And the only other child that's mentioned by name is Seth, another son. But all we know of Abel is that he is a child, a son of Adam and Eve. He's a brother of Cain, and he has a gift to care for livestock. But why was Abel's gift pleasing to God? Well, that's another thing we're not told. Why did God favor Abel's sacrifice versus Cain's sacrifice? There were two brothers. The Bible just simply says Abel obeyed. And it's because of this that throughout the Scriptures, throughout both the Old and the New Testament, Abel is known for his obedience and his recognizing of the truth. Bottom line, Abel knew what was expected from him. So as he gave God a sacrifice, he picked the finest of his flock. He didn't just pick what was left over. He picked the firstborn, the special, the unique one. And that's what he gave to God. You see, Abel's commitment to his family, to his work, and to his God is a faith role model for us all. Yet, Abel was the first victim of a violent crime. He was the first person to lose his life because of his faith. From the beginning of time, following God was not easy. And it's always been tough, and it will continue to be tough. It was tough from the first people on the land, and it's tough today to follow God because there's always someone against you, always someone threatening you. In the course of my ministry, and many of you can relate to this, I've come across a lot of young people who have pursued their own faith. What do I mean by that? Their parents, their family had no interest in faith, yet they themselves, at a young age, whether it be middle school or high school, decide to pursue their faith. And they start their spiritual walk alone, without the support of their family. And I'm here to tell you that is absolutely tragic. But those are the people that I have the most respect for. The fact that they're pursuing their spiritual walk without anybody telling them to, without anybody getting on to them. And for us as parents, grandparents, wherever you find yourself, I think it's also an opportunity for us to take this very seriously and to understand one basic truth. There are a lot of parents and grandparents in our community that have not encouraged, support their children's spiritual walk. What I have to say to them and anyone out here today, what you are doing when you are not encouraging your children's spiritual walk, when you're not the one leading them, when you're not the one guiding them, what you are doing is you're sending your own children to hell. You're opening up the gates of hell and telling them to come right on in. With that being said, what is more important than pursuing your child's spiritual life? There's nothing more important. You're talking about your child's future for all of eternity. Only because we're too busy, we've got too much going on. Sounds like an excuse than a reason. But now we have Abel, who lost his life. He lost his life because Cain was so lost in his sin that he felt like someone had to pay, and pay with their life. So, Cain makes the wrong choice. Cain has this conversation with God. I want to read that to you before we go into why he did what he did. But this conversation that Cain has with God is, in my mind, fascinating, because it tells us a lot about sin, and it tells us how sin attacks us. In Genesis 4, 6 through 8, it says this: Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you furious? And why do you look despondent? If you do what is right, won't you be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it," Cain said to his brother. This is Cain's reaction to what God told him. Cain says to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." And while they were there, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. What was wrong with Cain's sacrifice? The Bible doesn't state this. But we can assume that part of the problem with Cain's sacrifice, just because it's what became the problem with his sin, is he had a bad attitude. There was something about his attitude that was bad, that was improper. And there was something about the offering that was somewhat jaded or insignificant. We can naturally assume that since Abel gave of his prized possession, that Cain just gave what was there. You see, he didn't live up to what God expected of him. And the one thing that we have to take to heart is the fact that God evaluates everything you give. But he evaluates both our motives and the quality of what we give. When we give to God and others, we should give with a joyful heart because we are able to give. Now, how can we give the right gift? Well, get out of your head the sum of money or the amount of time or what kind of gift. Get that out of your head, because that's almost irrelevant. The point to this is the fact that I want to share with you this morning. What is important is not what or the amount, but is what is your heart doing? The quality of your gift. If you're giving with all your heart, and you're giving to the point that you feel like this is a major sacrifice, this is a major step. And I'm not talking financially, solely. I'm also talking about your time and your effort and everything. If you're giving, and you're giving to the point that you're giving with a joyful heart, you give because you want to give, you work because you want to work, you serve because you want to serve, you lead because you want to lead, it's your desire, it's what you hope for, it's what your wish is. But I'm here to tell you, you're fulfilling what God is expecting from you. So, how would you react if someone suggests you've done something wrong? That's exactly what God does to Cain. He says, you messed up, Cain. You didn't do the right thing. Do you move to correct the mistake, or do you deny that you did anything wrong? After Cain's sacrifice was rejected, God gave him the chance to right his wrong and try again. God even encouraged him to fulfill this and to give him a second chance. But Cain refused, and for the rest of his life, this is a startling example of what happens when we refuse to admit to our mistakes. The next time someone suggests that you are wrong, take an honest look at yourself and choose God's way instead of Cain's. So, why did Cain kill Abel? In spite of parents' efforts and worries, conflicts between children and the family seem inevitable. And as I said, those of you who have siblings know that this is true. But in most cases, a mixture of competition and cooperation, a mixture of loving and fighting, eventually creates a very unique and strong bond between brothers and sisters. With that being said, it isn't unusual, however, for a parent to mumble the words or a variation of this statement. They fight so much that I hope they don't kill each other before they grow up. Maybe your parents said that, I don't mind it. But in Cain's case, this troubling potential became the tragedy. And while we don't know many of the details of this first child's life, the story and the explanation as to why he killed his brother is something we can all learn from today. So why did Cain do it? He was mad. He was angry. He was furious. Both he and his brother had made sacrifice, and God promoted his brother. Hail, favorite Abel, and how wonderful he was. And the list goes on and on. He was the favorite. Da-da-da-da-da. And then we have Cain. God says, you didn't give with your heart. You didn't give the best of what you had. So he glorifies Abel and his sacrifice, but yet poo-poos Cain's. Well, this makes Cain furious. And he makes his final decision. His decision is a clear reminder of how often we're aware of our opposite choices, yet we still do the wrong thing. It may not be choosing to murder, but we are still intentionally choosing to do something we shouldn't. The feelings motivating our behavior can always be changed by the simple thought of power. But here we begin to experience God's willingness to help. God gives Cain advice. God tells him how he can help. So when you're in the middle of a decision, and you know the difference between right and wrong, but you just feel led to do the wrong thing, ask God to help. Ask God to finish leading you the rest of this way. So what can we learn from this? Anger is not a sin necessarily, but actions motivated by anger can be sinful. Anger can motivate you to do something positive. There's countless examples of people who, because they were frustrated with themselves or they were frustrated with the situation, they propelled themselves. They did the best that they could. They were motivated by their anger. But many times anger pushes us to do the opposite, to react in an evil, threatening way. It just tells us and shares with us how much of an impact sin can have. When we talk about anger and the result of anger, sin has a profound impact. And the consequences of Cain's sin would last a lifetime. But what God tells Cain is remarkable. In Genesis 4:7, as we just read, he says this: if you do what is right, you will not be accepted. But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you. You must master it. In the very beginning, God tells us what sin is like and our reaction to it. In the very beginning, God tells us that sin creeps around every corner, pursuing us like a hunter's pursuing the hunt. And if we sit there and don't do anything, sin is going to overtake us. But if we fight back, if we grow in our faith, if we stick to our guns, then this crouching thing, we master it, we can overcome it. God also teaches us in this lesson about what we do with our offering and our giving. What we offer to God must be from our heart, and the best that we have, and the best of who we are. God just asks us to pursue with all our hearts, with all our proper motives. When I was in the first ministry that I had preaching-wise in Kentucky, southern Kentucky, and when I was there, I came across this family. This family had just suffered a crisis. The mother of the family had gone down the wrong road and was arrested for drugs and drug trafficking. They had a choice to make. Now, she would later serve probation and house arrest. But they had a choice to make. They could say how difficult life is and feel sorry for themselves, as oftentimes we choose to do. Or they could step back and say, how can I do better? How can I make this situation a better situation, a better choice? And when they did that, they discovered something. They discovered that God was still there for them. They started going to church. They became Christians. They led their children to become Christians. And they didn't sit there and say, you know what, I'm a bad person. Who am I to lead anybody to Christ? They could have, but they didn't. Instead, they knew they wanted better for their children. So they wanted to invest spiritually. God doesn't give up on us. Even when our sin takes hold, God doesn't give up. And many times I've heard the story of Cain and Abel, and I've already heard it's already over by now. But there's more to be said about Cain. And the one thing that I want to share with you is God wasn't done with Cain. God still chose to bless him. Now sure, Cain had his consequences. God handed out justice. He's the perfect judge. It's only right. Cain was severely punished for his murder. And that's the way God works. He judges all sin and punishes it appropriately, not out of vengeance, but because he desires to correct us and restore our relationship with him. God wants to stop sin so before sin can separate us from him. Now, here was the punishment. Cain would be a wanderer. Cain would lose the gift of being able to grow food. Now, for many of us, we could probably live without that gift. Before a farmer, and that was his only way of making a living, this was tragic. Cain actually approaches God and said, "This is too severe." And he asked God a question. He said, not only is this punishment too severe, but I'll be walking around and there's going to be someone who will want to kill me. Now, who is this other people that he's referring to? Keep in mind, he killed his brother. Adam and Eve had other brothers, or daughters, sons and daughters. These sons, they just had a brother killed. You think they would want revenge? Absolutely. But God is a blessed God, and he's a forgiving God, and he loved Cain. Even after Cain messed up, he still loved Cain. And this was what he did. Then the Lord replied to Cain. In that case, Cain says, well, somebody kills me. Whoever kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. And he placed a mark on Cain, so whoever found him would not kill him. Then Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain was intimate with his wife, and she conceived and gave birth to Enoch. One of the things that is surprising, and actually, Cain actually sets up a new city with his family. He names it Enoch after his firstborn son. What's fascinating about this is Cain kept his wife. Cain still had his freedom. He couldn't stay with Adam and Eve. He still had his freedom. And Cain was able to have children. So he had his family, he had his wife. I don't think it's beyond the question, beyond the reason, that Cain probably at some point in time sought forgiveness from God. And because he sought that forgiveness, God gave it to him and continued to bless him. God's not done with you. God does not give up. We all mess up. We all have our fair share of mistakes and sins. And while God allows us to face our consequences for our sin, which is just right, it just makes sense, he gives and offers us forgiveness. God's forgiveness is always available. It's always complete. And his love is always given to us. God doesn't give up. God's love is unlimited. It's beyond our sin. His forgiveness is beyond our guilt. And he blesses us beyond our wildest imagination. But we have to in turn learn to forgive. To forgive one another. To forgive ourselves. Which I think was probably the hardest thing for Cain to do. But Cain was given another chance because of God's love and forgiveness. As the musicians come forward, I would like to leave you with a quote. There is no love without forgiveness, and there is no forgiveness without love. There's so many lessons that we've learned about Cain from Cain and Abel. Abel, we learn a true commitment of a faith role model. He was dedicated to his work, but also dedicated to his family, and most importantly, dedicated to his faith. It is because of that that he lost his life. On the flip side, we also have Cain. We learn a lot from Cain. We learned how when sin creeps around the corner looking to devour us, looking to tempt us and to bring us down, that we have to be on guard because it's pursuing us like the hunter pursues its prey. That's our life. But God will always be willing to love you and to forgive you. So which is it? Can we allow our sins to be forgiven? We forgive ourselves and we forgive those who have wronged us. In doing that, pursuing a commitment puts us in line with God's vision of our life. That we're dedicated to our family and our responsibilities there, and our work and our responsibilities there, and dedicated to our God and our responsibilities with Him. As we enter into the final moments of worship, we have decisions to make. One of our decisions may be that we're looking for a church home and we'd like to join here at First Christian. We would love to have you. Absolutely love to have you. But maybe your choice today is, I'm willing to give my life to the Lord. I'm willing to be committed to my faith, be baptized here this morning. I encourage you to come down during that time if that's your decision. But if you need prayer, I would love to pray with you. I'd love to open this up here for you to pray on your own or pray where you are. But let's stand as we offer our worship.
Jesus, draw